Hey friends, hope you're doing well. Hope you got your coffee if you drink coffee. If you don't drink coffee, that's cool too. I left mine inside, so I have none. And it's really hot out here today, so I may not make it that long. But I just want to start out by saying you never know who's paying attention to what you're doing. You know, you're so busy doing things day to day, and you might even think nobody's noticing. But there are people out there that know about you that you have no idea. I've had that happen a few different times in my life. And with the podcast, after doing it a year, maybe 2 years, and it's one of those things that it's just me. Like right now, I'm sitting here in front of a camera, just me, you know, sitting here in my backyard talking to you guys. So it's easy to just feel like I'm hanging out with myself, talking to people though. With the podcast, I would do that. I'm talking an audio podcast. I don't think of this as being a podcast, but other people refer to it as that, and it's all confusing, and I don't know what to call it. But I used to have people that would be somewhat famous, and I would meet, and they would start talking about my audio podcast, and they'd talk about particular episodes, and they would remember things that I don't remember, and would be telling me about it. And it's just kind of a weird thought. It's like, oh wow. People are paying attention to that, you know, people I admire and like. It's a weird reminder, you know, to just be yourself. And sometimes if you would be thinking about, you know, if I was thinking about that there might be somebody watching, like that Lucinda Williams, you know, or Paul McCartney, or I don't know, if Willie Nelson or Bob Dylan's out there watching this, then it might make me act differently, and I might not be just this normal person that you guys enjoy hanging out with. I might act a little different, you know, I don't know. But you just don't think about that stuff. But hey, Lucinda, I hope you're out there. But I got a message about a week ago, a little over a week ago, from a friend of mine, Josh, who's a promoter, venue owner, old dear friend here in town, and he was saying that some people from William Morris Agency that he knows, they were trying to get in touch with me. Does he know how to get in touch with me? And he forwarded me a message, and it was said J Mascis was hoping to meet me when Dinosaur Jr. plays in town. The message said that he was a big fan. I take a lot of that with a grain of salt. You never know whether he said that or somebody else or whatever. But I dig Dinosaur Jr. I think they're great. I think J Mascis is great. And there's so many interesting things about him musically and, you know, as an individual. And so I was like, yeah, I'd like to meet J Mascis. So they put us on the guest list. I got in touch with his tour manager, got in touch with me, and we hooked it up to where we went. And Amy went with me. It just so happens when I did that show, I don't know, back when, about what's the loudest concert you ever been to, and I did that video, which a lot of people enjoyed, which, by the way, what's the loudest concert you've ever been to? Tell me down below. And Amy's answer was Dinosaur Jr. at Bogart's in Cincinnati back in the 90s. So she saw them at Bogart's, and she saw them, I think, in Indianapolis at Lollapalooza. It was one of the Lollapalooza shows. She saw them then. So we went, and it was great, man. We went before the show, went backstage at the Marat. It's the Egyptian room. It probably holds a couple thousand, maybe a few thousand. It's hard to tell. It's a nice big room. And we went backstage and went to Jay's dressing room, and he was just so nice. I mean, really, really nice and thoughtful, smart, just really pleasant to be around. Mellow, one of my favorite qualities in a person, mellow. And we talked about guitars and stuff, and hung out. And then after the show was over, we went back and hung out some more. And just a really great guy. It was nice to cross paths and find out that there's people out there like Jay that enjoy what I do, you know. I think that's cool. Really, and watches this and enjoys this sort of thing. So that felt really good. And he's just a really good down-to-earth guy, which I like that. We talk guitars and stuff. One thing of note is I stood on the side of the stage and watched Dinosaur Jr. So I'm standing next to the guitar tech, and they start playing, and it's pretty loud. But I'm thinking, yeah, man, that's a good, his guitar sounds great, you know, this is great. I'm thinking it's loud. He's got two, I think 100-watt Marshall heads with two matching 412 cabinets, and another high-watt head with two matching 412 cabinets. And then in front of him, on this, in front of him on a big road case, that's the bottom of it is a Fender Twin on top of a big road case. The bottom of the Fender Twin is like chest high, so it's pointed right in his face with those three, you know, there's 6 412 cabinets with 3 heads on it behind him, kind of folding in around him, and then that, and it's all kind of blending, and everything is on 10. And I'm listening to that from the side of the stage, and like the first part of the song, and I was like, wow, that sounds, I mean, it sounded really good, and but it's loud. And I was like, okay, well, you know, it's supposed to be a loud band. And then just a minute into the song, first song, he steps on the big muff. I didn't know exactly what it was. I knew that that was part of the recipe, and it got ungodly loud. It played like a single note thing, and it just got huge. It sounded, I mean, tremendous. It sounded really, really great, and it was wide and huge when he would play like single note, like leads or whatever, parts that you could sing. It was just amazing how big it got. And now every time, everybody I've ever met, like the big problem with big muffs back when, and fuzz pedals in general, where if you played and then turned them on at some point, everything, the perceived volume got way lower. And but his got way louder. I don't know what kind of chicanery he's doing with that. Because I asked him, like, is it just the muff? What's going on? And he said it was just the muff. So I don't know why his is so much louder, but it sounded great, and it worked way better because, you know, it gives you that boost. The guitar nerds might appreciate that. It was really cool. There's a cool video, I think it's Reverb, did a video showing a lot of his old guitars. It's real fun, and it's good. You should go watch that if you haven't already. Maybe if I say that, J Mascis Reverb, it'll suggest it to the people who watch this video. Maybe. I don't know if it works that way or not. But that was a good time. And then the next day, my buddy Slade Cleaves was making his annual trek from Austin up to Maine. Him and his wife, Karen, spend the summers up there in Maine at a cabin they have. And they played a gig in Lawrence, Kansas, home of Chuck Mead. And, well, not home anymore, but, you know, that's where Chuck's from. And they played there. I guess it was a real good gig, and they were making their way towards the East Coast. And he said something to me a couple weeks before saying, we're going to drive through Indianapolis. Do you want to have lunch? On this day, we're going to drive through. And I just thought of it like the day before. And I texted him like, hey, man, we still getting together for lunch? And he's like, yeah. So it was me and Amy and Todd Fox went over to Shapiro's in downtown Indianapolis, a 105-year-old deli. And we met up with Slade and Karen and Chojo, who's touring with them. And it's a really nice lunch. Good to see him and hang out. Now, of course, I couldn't help myself, but as we're sitting there, some windows, as you look across the street, there's a bunch of trees. And I said, oh man, check those trees out across the street. Somebody planted the hell out of those trees over there. And everybody at the table's like, oh God, here we go. And I'm like, that's right, I planted those like 20-something years earlier. I remember this. I remember the day very well, and I start to describe it and start to bore everybody. But I'd forgotten about that. I showed up that day and I looked, and there's just a lot of trees that I had planted right along the road, right there by Shapiro's. So if you're in Indianapolis, just north of Shapiro's, like if you're looking north from there, you'll see all these trees along the road. I planted them way back when. But that was a good hang, and then they went on, and it's good. I don't think Amy had ever met Slade and Karen, so that was a nice hang. And then I think it was that day, maybe it was. I think it was that day, but I'm not positive. I'd heard that Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman, passed away, and I have this big, long backstory of loving Pee Wee Herman, you know, the character he played or whatever. I know it's Paul Reubens, but I'm just going to refer to him as Pee Wee Herman. When a long, long time ago, it was over 30 years ago, way over 30 years, maybe in 1985 or 6, something like that. I had a buddy who there's a couple of friends that I played music with, and we would go over to one of them's house, go down in the basement, and we would just jam, you know, 3 or 4 nights a week, and doing absolutely nothing, directionless, just having fun. What a crazy idea. Get together with your friends and play music and have fun. What a crazy idea. But that's what we would do. And his the guy that owned the place, Dave, if you're out there, Dave, how you doing, man? Hope you're doing well. But his girlfriend had a son that he would babysit a lot, and the son loved Pee Wee Herman and had a bunch of VHS tapes, remember VHS tapes, and the kid, I don't know how old the kid was, 5 or 7 years old or something, would pick out tapes and stick them in. So while we're playing, the kid would always get Pee Wee's Big Adventure and stick it in. Now, I saw that movie when it first came out. I went to the theater and saw it, loved it, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later saw it at the drive-in, loved it. And then like a year or so later, this was all going on. And so this kid would play that VHS tape. When we would come upstairs, being done playing, and walk in and see that was on, like, oh, cool, man, you know, what the hell, and sit down and get sucked into it and watch the whole thing. And the next day we come back, come upstairs, oh, Pee Wee's on, watch it again. This went on for way over a year and a half, something like that. And I've seen that movie literally over 100 times. And I have zero doubts that I've seen it more than any other movie in my lifetime. And we got so far in, like so far down the rabbit hole on that movie, that we watched it so many times that we came up with trivia that we would play, where beyond just repeating the lines, you know, we all knew a bunch of lines. Is that something you can share with the rest of us, Amazing Larry? You know, tell me about your big butt, Simone. You know, all of that stuff. I remember Simone saying her dream, she's a waitress, her dream was to one day visit Paris, but her boyfriend, the big Bluto guy, wouldn't let her. And he's like, well, why won't, Pee Wee says to Simone, why won't he let you see Paris? And she says he flunked French in high school, and now he believes that everything is set up over there to make guys like him look dumb. And that line explains so many people that I'd met in my life or something, you know. But we would watch this, and we would, so we got way farther past those lines. And when Pee Wee, we'd come up with trivia. When Pee Wee finds out, or is explaining that his bike is stolen, or finds out there's a shelf behind him, what's on the shelf, you know? Stupid things like that. I don't know the answer to that, but I did back when. And just a lot of different fun stuff like that. And when I make a list, when people ask me over the years of like, you know, what's your favorite movies? And I kind of never enjoyed lists like that, but I made myself come up with some answers for movies that I thought, what are the ones that I really love that bring joy to me? And I would always say things like Paris, Texas, Wings of Desire, HUD, Night of the Iguana, The Straight Story, things like that. I would, a lot of things like that. And just somewhere in the last 5 years, I thought about it. I thought, man, that Pee-wee's Big Adventure has brought so much joy to me over the years. Why wouldn't I include that? And there's that weird part where you want them to be great movies but I think it's a great movie. And so I started saying, yeah, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I think it's Tim Burton's finest hour. You could argue Edward Scissorhands or, something else, but I don't know. I just think it's funny. And I also think that I've said this before on the channel. When you're talking about art, people always try to think of art or songs, or movies as being something that hits you really hard and it's heavy and depressing and all of that. I think those are some of the easiest things to achieve. It's easy to bum people out just by saying some stuff. But man, if you can make people laugh and not make them feel cheap, where it wasn't like mean-spirited and demean someone else, not you're laughing at someone, you're just laughing, and it takes that load off of you. I think that's high art. I really believe that. And like when you watch Raising Arizona, I think that's just amazing how it hits all of those notes and makes you feel great. That's a hell of a talent, John Prine had it, where he could write those songs that make you laugh and feel good and you don't feel dumb or cheap because you like it. That's a hell of a talent. I think Pee-wee's Big Adventure does that for me. You can hate it if you want to, and that's fine, but I really dig it. But I told a little bit of that story on Patreon a couple days ago, and I also told another story that I can't share publicly or whatever, but I shared it with those folks there. And so if you ever thought about, joining up, there's things like that on there, or channel members also. But thank you to those folks who support all this stuff. And the last thing I will say is I really want you guys to know about the documentary that I made of Todd Snyder. We went back to Memphis and followed him and made that. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. A lot of people have been enjoying it, but I want to make sure that it keeps chugging along and doing well. I'll put it right here, and you can watch it, and I'll see you guys somewhere down the road. Much love to you.